For the vast majority of people, I don't think their jobs will go away, but the workflow will change. And so having a good way to help people and shift their work in the appropriate way.
Welcome to the Coursera podcast, where we have conversations with renowned experts and industry leaders to explore global trends impacting the future of work and education. I'm your host, Arunab Sena, Vice President of Global Communications at Coursera. Innovation is a powerful engine of societal growth and economic progress, and AI, especially generative AI, is viewed as the most important catalyst of innovation today. It's going to reshape and transform every industry and discipline. Because Gen AI is so new, we are in the early stages of applying the technology in various domains. Knowing how to take advantage of AI gives organizations endless opportunities to innovate and better serve their customers. Today, I'm excited and honored to welcome one of the world's most prolific and renowned AI experts, Andrew Ng, to the podcast. Andrew is co-founded Coursera and Google Brain, launched DeepLearning.ai, Landing.ai, and AI Fund, and was the former chief scientist at Baidu. As a Stanford University adjunct professor and one of the most impactful educators of AI, Andrew has changed countless lives through his work. In 2023, he was named one of Time's 100 most influential people in AI. Today, we will discuss how Andrew got started with artificial intelligence, his best practices for incorporating AI into organization, and his outlook on the future of AI in education and work. Welcome, Andrew. I'm so delighted to have you on the podcast.
Always great to see you, Arnav.
Let's start with the beginning. Can you share about your journey into AI and what drew you to this fascinating aspect of technology?
When I was a teenager growing up in Singapore, I remember I had an internship where my job was as an office admin, and I just had to do a lot of photocopying. My teenage self was thinking, boy, if only there was something like a robot or something to do all this photocopying, maybe I could do something else. Since then, I've been fascinated by automation. And I was fortunate that my father, who is a practicing physician, was writing really early rudimentary now we think is really rudimentary AI software, and so I got to learn about that with him. And then through college, graduate school, becoming a professor at Stanford, I've been fortunate to have then continued to learn and make contributions to AI.
And what a fascinating contribution so far, Andrew. As someone who has seen the evolution of AI up and close, did the sudden rise in response to ChatGPT surprise you? And how has this changed how businesses and technologies approach AI?
I know the popular answer is to say this came out of nowhere. I think the specific takeoff of ChatGPT was a surprise, but many of us saw a change coming to text processing a few years before the launch of ChatGPT. And this is not me making up after the fact. A friend pointed out to me recently that in 2020, more than 2 years before ChatGPT was released, I actually wrote in our newsletter, and just still on the internet. So in September 2020, I actually wrote, we saw that GPT-3 was clearly changing the way that text is being processed. I did not realize it'd be a chatbot launched November, 2 years later, that would be what suddenly gets a lot of attention. But the technology has been brewing for some time. But of course, ChatGPT brought it to everyone's awareness, created a lot more use cases, and led to this consumerization of AI, which is very exciting. And now, I think we all see we have a lot of work ahead of us to build new applications using the technology that's now available.
Yeah, as a researcher, you have access to lot many things that normally people don't have. So it's very difficult to surprise you, but definitely it has captured the imagination of the world. And Andrew, you just didn't create Coursera, you also teach on Coursera. Over 8 million people have taken AI courses, yours, the most popular being the groundbreaking AI for Everyone. And now your sequel, Generative AI for Everyone, has attracted over 90,000 learners in just 30 days, making it Coursera's fastest growing course of 2023. What do you think is driving this demand? And when it comes to learning Gen AI skills for work, what are some of the most fundamental skills people should focus on?
One of the tricky things to understand about AI is a general purpose technology, meaning it's useful for a lot of different things. If asked what is electricity useful for, it's almost hard to give an answer because it's so pervasive, and AI is like that too. It's not just get answers through chat thing. It's also a copy editor. It can help summarize documents. It can be a customer service support, and on and on and on. People are using it for legal documents, healthcare documents. And what this means is that for almost anyone, as an individual, professional, or student, or whatever people do, generative AI is a wonderful productivity tool. For example, today, many people, having to learn how to use web search, and it's an important productivity tool for most people. I think generative AI is working well enough. That's an important productivity tool for almost everyone, certainly people playing professional roles in almost all businesses. That fuel, I think, some of the demand for the generative AI for everyone course on Coursera, because pretty much anyone learning these tools can use them for their work or their personal life. And also businesses starting to think through how will generative AI affect my business or my industry vertical. And so we try to convey some of that as well in generative AI for everyone. So I hope that this will help a lot of people figure out AI and how this will affect them, their businesses, the industry vertical, maybe even understand how it might affect society.
Yeah, in fact, it's clearly relevant for everyone, but particularly relevant for business leaders as they think about implementing this within the enterprise context. And you meet a lot of leaders yourself, Andrew. I know you're heading to Davos as well, and you'll be meeting a lot of decision makers too. What questions are leaders posing you about generative AI, and what advice would you have for those company leaders looking to incorporate AI into their organizations?
I'm seeing a lot of boards and business leaders trying to figure out the right mental framework to think about generative AI. It's still new enough. People are wondering, there's a lot of hype, what's new, what's fake, do I need to be fearful about it? And then also, how can I as an individual use it? And then also, how will this affect my business and my industry vertical? I think one good example is actually really inspired by Coursera CEO Jeff Margin Calder in the way he approached it. So Jeff learned to use and become a real proponent of generative AI himself as a CEO. I think the Wall Street Journal actually wrote him up as a thought leader CEO, that he wasn't following the technology. He was even, leading in a very active way Coursera's thinking of how to use generative AI. And I think it's fantastic when a CEO learns how to use it themselves and can speak with precision and knowledge about how it's making them more effective and productive, and then can evangelize throughout the organization to figure out the use cases. So I think Jeff was a great example of a CEO that isn't himself an engineer, figuring this out and then helping lead the organization forward. And because generative AI is a general purpose technology, I think this will affect almost all businesses, especially ones that involve knowledge work. The last wave of AI maybe affected more lower wage jobs, automation, but this wave of generative AI is actually affecting a lot of knowledge work. This means that it will have implications for businesses in terms of what AI can now augment or automate. It's changed significantly in the last few years, what is now possible with AI. And having leaders make sure that their organization figure this out, because the opportunities are different. The way that a legal firm may use AI is different than the way that a healthcare organization may use AI. It's different than the way that an educational company will use AI. But I think a lot of work lies ahead of us, exciting work lies ahead of us, to take this general purpose technology that's useful for so many things, and then industry by industry or business by businesses figure out what are the implications so that we can help people use them, and then also build the new software applications that are now possible.
Yeah, in fact, Andrew, Jeff quotes you a lot when he talks about that how Gen AI is a general purpose like electricity, and you need to be very mindful of how you use it. And in fact, as you rightly mentioned, he has been an incredible role model, just not in using, but also striking a balance between where Gen AI could be valuable and how to extract maximum value instead of being fully driven by Gen AI output. So he's been striking a good balance and being a great role model as well.
And in fact, a few weeks ago, Jeff and I were at a meeting together of a lot of CEOs. It was a private meeting, so I won't share too many details. But it was really nice to see Jeff on stage teaching a lot of CEOs how to use ChatGPT and how to use tools like that. I feel like it's good to figure this out up and down the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So, which brings me to a very provocative question. When is Gen AI not appropriate for work? It does bring a lot of new risk. There is hallucination and bias sometimes. How do you tackle this in your course as well?
In the course Generative AI for Everyone, we talk through a lot of the limitations of generative AI. So, for example, it will sometimes make things up. We call that hallucination. And sometimes it gets a wrong answer. And just as web search is sometimes not the appropriate tool for a certain task because the internet doesn't have the answer, I think generative AI is also sometimes not the appropriate tool. And having a realistic understanding of what it can and cannot do, that helps us in a case by case way have better instincts about when should I use it and what are the data privacy implications if I, type something into ChatGPT or bot. Whether is it okay to share certain types of information with a web hosted chatbot versus running one on my own laptop where all the conversation stays on my own laptop. But just think those types of implications. Hope we can be helpful to people wanting to answer those questions.
Yeah, those have been super helpful. I have finished the course myself and found this incredibly illuminating in my day-to-day decision making.
Oh,
That's how I've been guiding, encouraging the team to do the same. Andrew, you mentioned a little bit about this, touched earlier in the point. There is a big debate going on, which is the human cost of disruption, and that's not really hype. That's real, the displacement. What is your perspective on how Gen AI will impact workers as it gets more integrated into our workflows?
one of my friends, Kurt Langlots, who's a radiologist, said AI won't replace radiologists, but radiologists that use AI will replace radiologists that don't. And I think this is more true than not, for vast majority of professions, because it turns out that there's a lot of discussion about AI replacing jobs, and I'm not dismissing that. But I find that an even more useful intellectual framework is to think of jobs as bundles of tasks. So in our work, we do many different tasks. And it turns out that when we decompose a job into the tasks, and then analyze at the task by task level what AI can and cannot do, often we find that AI can automate or augment just a fraction of the tasks that involve a job. So, for example, radiologists, they read x ray images, consult with patients, do patient intakes, operate the machines, mentor younger doctors, and on and on and on. And some of those tasks, like maybe the patient intake survey, that's relatively easy to automate, but consulting with a patient, having a conversation, displaying empathy, maybe that's harder for AI to automate. And so what I'm seeing is that as AI automates some parts of a job, we often end up having to re-engineer the workflow of what a job role is to take advantage of this amazing productivity boost while focusing our efforts on other things that AI cannot and maybe at this moment in time should not be counted on to do. And so, for the vast majority of people, I don't think their jobs will go away. But for a lot of people, learn about generative AI, take advantage of the productivity boost, and shift their work in the appropriate way. That's a lot of work ahead of us. And to be clear, I'm not minimizing the suffering of the much smaller number whose jobs will be largely automated and will go away. I think we as a society have a responsibility to create a safety net and to give them opportunities to upskill and to keep contributing to the workforce and society. So we do need to take care of that. But without dismissing that small fraction, I think the worries about AI completely replacing a lot of jobs, that's probably more fear than is completely merited. But one big challenge is how do we help lots of people learn Gen AI and incorporate it into their work?
That's where education is going to be very, very important, reskilling, upskilling. And at the heart, I know, Andrew, you love being a teacher, love being instructor. You have a global fan following. So tell me a little bit about your own thoughts on AI's application for learning. Professors and teachers have expressed concern about the unintended consequences of Gen AI in education as well. But you have previously stated that you see great opportunities. So how do you think Gen AI can make teaching and learning more effective?
Yeah. So in addition to the challenge of making sure a lot of people learn and can use Gen AI, I feel like a lot of people, including many teams in Coursera, have been thinking through how can Gen AI help with online education or help with education. My gut is that there is a large change to education coming because of Gen AI. I don't think anyone's really totally figured out what it is yet. There are fantastic products like Coursera Coach, which chats with learners, helps answer questions. I think it works, remarkably well. Not all the time, but actually works pretty well. And then Khan Academy has Khan Miko. So I think there are innovations like that are very hopeful and very useful. But I think my gut is there's a bigger shift coming still, and we don't totally know what it is. But I actually spend quite a lot of my spare time chatting with friends and trying to figure out what that next disruption is. Have some ideas, but I don't think we know the answer yet.
Andrew, in 2012, when you founded the company, that was really the first revolution of making learning accessible to people, which obviously put the content on internet, have a structure to the programs, add a credential at the end, and people will be excited about learning from top instructor institutions. But the learning was still not very personalized in many ways. Do you think Gen AI, one is the ability to translate content? Coursera just translated thousands of courses in 17 languages. And second, ability to really help students in every part of the world with a very personal feedback. Is that the real gold mine, real promise of Genia?
I think personalized learning has been one of those dreams that a lot of people have talked about for like a decade or probably more, even longer than a decade. And it's been a struggle to make that work, right? The amount of excitement versus the amount of realization. I think Gen AI could really help with that. The Coursera's work on translating content is exciting to make it more accessible to people that speak many different languages. And then I think the details are so challenging. I mean, do we envision a world where everyone learns everything from a chatbot? I don't think that's actually the final answer. I think there are some really important pieces that we don't quite understand yet, but that are exciting to work on. Oh, and I'm actually literally spending a lot of time, chatting to your friends, brainstorming. Why do we want this experience to help learners? How come that thing doesn't work? There's so many things in education that work in theory but not in practice, and I think we're seeing a bunch of genial ideas that sound like they could work, but when you put it in front of a learner, no one seems to actually want to, even though it would have been great in theory. So I think we just have important things to sort out still.
Yeah, probably this is as an add-on. Means great instructors are indispensable. No matter what you do, knowledge creators, great educators are going to be absolutely paramount to a great educational experience. Probably these tools will enhance the absorption of knowledge and the practice of knowledge and may make agility in content production, etc. So there's some exciting ideas happening, and I'm sure that with your guidance, we will be able to get to a right balance. To close out the conversation, Andrew, what are your hopes for what AI will accomplish in the future? You've talked a lot about its widespread impact across the world. If you were to put your 5 year hat on yourself, what do you think AI can accomplish for humanity?
I think we can make intelligence cheap. Today, intelligence is expensive. I mean, we see at Coursera and around the world, it is so difficult. It takes so much time and effort. And as a society, we spend trillions of dollars on education. It's very expensive to train, feed, and educate a wise human being. And this is why it's so costly to hire intelligence, to find a specialist doctor to advise you on medical condition, or to hire a coach to patiently tutor your child. But unlike human intelligence, I think artificial intelligence can be made cheap. So I'd love for all of us collectively to build a future where people no longer need to worry about a huge bill for going to see a doctor or for sending their child to college. Imagine a future where anyone can hire an army of smart, well informed staff to help us all think things through. And I think AI will also help us with society's biggest challenges like pandemics and climate change. The ability to make intelligence cheap so that any of us can hire intelligence, I think that can empower a lot of people and make everyone in the world much better off.
Well, that's a very powerful thought. Language allowed humanity to connect and bond their ideas, and now intelligence can increasingly enhance the productivity of human beings and potentially make the whole race much more creative and impactful. Now, I think that's very powerful. Can you share some of your own productivity hacks that you have sort of incorporated using Gen AI as part of your day to day routine?
I use GPT-4 multiple times a day, I think every single day, sometimes bot and sometimes Bing chat, as a brainstorming partner, copy editor to try to get a quick pulse on information, often a brainstorming partner. And then for really privacy sensitive things, I tend to run it locally on my laptop, which is not as effective as GPT-4. But if I run like a 7 or 34 or 70 billion parameter model on my laptop, then I can have more confidential feedback on things that I don't want to send to the internet to some company. But I find that I personally am more productive using Gen AI tools in my workflow. I hope that we can teach a lot of people to use Gen AI for their workflows as well.
Absolutely, Andrew. It's been an honor and privilege to be working for you and to be working on Coursera. You're a guiding light for a lot of people and you inspire a lot of us. Thank you so much for.
Aruna, you always give me way too much credit. It's been a privilege working with you, Aruna. And I think, frankly, a lot of Coursera's success, we're actually really grateful to all the learners and all the companies working with us and all the learners doing the hard work of learning this stuff. I think that I actually feel like I make a tiny contribution, and it's the hard work of the learner that actually is what matters. I find myself very grateful to all the people taking courses, spending hours and hours when they could be doing something else to gain these skills and to go use these skills to help themselves and their families and societies. I feel really privileged to be able to play a tiny role supporting the learners and the corporations and the governments doing the important work.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you, Arun.
What a great conversation. Sending gratitude to Andrew for joining us today. He's truly advancing our collective thinking and pushing the boundaries of AI development. As leaders across the world continue to grapple with the rise of Gen AI and how it can benefit their organizations, Andrew's groundbreaking course, Generative AI for Everyone, will guide you through how the technology works and what it can and can't do. You can take the course now on Coursera.org. And for access to the broader Coursera catalog of over 6,000 courses from top universities and companies, we are offering a subscription to Coursera Plus for just $1. Click the link in the episode description for more details. If you enjoyed this episode of the Coursera podcast, please rate, review, and share. Until next time, I'm Arunav Sinha. Thank you for tuning in, and like Andrew said, thank you for learning with us.